So in my desire to be the greatest game master ever, trademark me on that one, I've been thinking about narrative structure. And narrative structure is important to games. Beyond the old school hack and slash of Gygax's day. And I've had a few thoughts. The first really being, how do you present story and characters? And that's really been sort of an interesting topic, because RPGs don't really play out like a movie or a comic or a TV series. They're really quite player perspective focused. Now I'm probably going to have some kind of strange text on the screen saying player perspective focused, like I'm some kind of artsy idiot. But, well, how can I do this? It really comes down to what can the players see and what the players can't see. I'm kind of reluctant as a game master to do scenes which is essentially just me talking to myself between different characters. While it does set things up quite nicely in a sort of narrative sense, it can leave the players kind of bored if they're not paying attention. So, as an example, in the Project Vigil stream, which you should totally watch, by the way, it is quite good, and you on this Saturday, you should watch the stream. I opted to do something a little different. It was a scene that was used, or was a scene that didn't involve the player characters, but it was in a place where the characters could see it, i.e. a TV show. Normally can't really do that in, say, D&D or your fantasy alternative, but it's not like it's not like you've got the mage orbs that can view TV. But why would you have TV? But never mind that bullshit. What I'm trying to do is generate characters and plot in a new and interesting way. And I suppose I'll delve into what my methodology for Project Vigil is, which you should totally watch, by the way. Okay, firstly, I'm implementing what I like to call the rule of three. This is introduce at least aim to introduce 3 named characters in each session. Now, I understand how exponentially this may go wrong, and how my brain may not be able to contain all individual names. That is a problem. Secondly, I wish to implement different storylines in a sort of concurrent, staggered basis. So, while yes, there may be something going on, it's not always the same thing constantly, which is a bit different to, going to a dragon's cave, and that's about it, really. When you can have multiple storylines going on at the same time and they can kind of intersect, and people can go, wow, that's really good. Additionally, I like to have things plotted out. Not in such a sense that it feels too railroady. I'm all the player choice and agency, all that good stuff. But I like to drop in hints every now and then. Whether it be characters, whether it be plot details, whether it be some small nugget of truth in a lie. I like to foreshadow. I think it's a great narrative technique and tool. However, you need to be very subtle about it. You need to drop it in everyday conversation. You also need to drop it in with a sense of irony as well, because you kind of know what you're doing. Yeah. It does have to be a little bit ironic. But I suppose you'd say, MS, you're like fucking an idiot for like railroading. And I'm like, I don't really like railroading that much. I mean, I like there's a plot. I like there's like logical conclusions and characters and all that, and they're all interacting. And the way that I've got it set out in my head is the characters would act in this way and that way and that way. So yeah, it would kind of be a plot. But I mean, things can change, and you've got to be adaptable for that. Because, you never know what you're going to encounter, and if you just stay on one straight path, it's not good. It's not creative, and it just annoys your players. I mean, thankfully my players in Project Vigil, which you should totally check out by the way, should have told me that they do like railroading to some degree. They want to be able to understand the characters and the world, and I think that's kind of good in whenever you're setting up something that's kind of sandboxy, sort of do anything setting. Oh man, that was terrible. But you need to be able to set things up, and if you just present everyone a big toolbox or selection of cakes or whatever you like, they're just going to look at it and say, well, what do I choose? What do I go down? What thread do I pull? And that some players can do that. A lot of players can't. What you need to do is be able to have players interact with something quite planned out, something a little scripted. Not too scripted, mind you. You've got to keep some leeway here and there. But you need to be able to introduce the players to the world, concepts, and characters so they're invested. So when they do go off the rails and do the sandbox content you've prepared, guess what? You've introduced all the characters, you've got all the details down of what problems they may be incurring, and you have people wanting to find solutions to it. And you can just pull on these different little narrative trails, and it's all awesome and it's all great. But there's another problem with it as well. I mean, a lot of people like the sort of 3-arc structure of a fantasy adventure, or other kinds of adventure if you're open and willing for it. That makes sense. That's very good. And I can understand a lot of people like to be sort of the main characters in a grand adventure. And that's where railroading can really work quite well. But again, you need to be able to account for player choices, player interactions, all that good stuff. Of course, there's stuff happening off screen, and you need ways to convey it. And personally, I've tried this technique of, which I've mentioned before, of doing a scene elsewhere, sort of like a meta scene, where the characters don't really know what's going on. And that doesn't really work. It really doesn't. Because how would they know it? If you need to have all this supplemental material in your story that the player characters can't possibly know, why do the players know but the player characters don't know? I mean, there's a certain thing of like, you can have interactions between players and NPCs who are away from other people, like, shady, dirty dealings, something that I've done. But that's still within the confines of the party. Not no one there. So you kind of need to be able to do that. Now, I should really talk about the insider trope. I do love that. Although should I really use it as a trope? No, it's not. I'll save it for another thing. But what you need to do is ensure your characters are engaged. And the great way to do this is to have a personal stake in it. It could be one character has a stake in something, or it could be all of them. But what you need to do is you need to build things up to be interesting and engaging. And usually engaging means doing things with your players. Well, at least when you start. I mean, later on you could probably do it, but I won't advise it. But, whatever works for you. I'm more sort of generalisting a rule of thumb, not a rule of totality. Some people like that sort of stuff. Me, personally, I do not. And I think it's like, what the fuck am I doing? Why should I care? I mean, granted, I probably should, but people don't. I feel like I'm going a little abstract with this. But let's kind of conclude off this very off-the-cuff video. I don't know if I would say it's a rant, because it's not ranty. Well, it's more of a blather. Blather, that's a good term. I haven't used that in a while. Whatever. Blathering aside, Anyway, to conclude this ranty... Well, it's not really a rant, is it? It's more blather. Blather, that's the one. I would stress to say that when developing story, you need to make it to players, and the players need to make it themselves as well. What you really need to do is engage your players, and there are different ways to do this. Players have different temperaments, of course. Some players are violently against railroading, while others are violently against sandboxes, although I'm not really too sure that many people are violently against sandboxes, but they exist. They must exist. It's just statistics. I typically, to close off, I'll just say, use something that I've tried, and it seems to work pretty well. Especially when building more of like an intimate campaign setting, rather than just adventuring, because it's a lot harder to implement this information. But ask your players for 3 people that they know. And then get your players to describe them. You can give them time to do this. You can just say, hey, I want you to come up with 3 NPCs you know and what their relations are to you. It can be good, it can be bad, it can be your friends. Imagine more like an ensemble TV cast where your character is the main character. You have different characters kind of floating around you. And then it's my job to know it all down, implement it, and use them. Takes out half the job. Because it rewards a player for their own creativity, their own concepts. And it makes them feel comfortable and acknowledged. At least I think. I should really ask my players on this. But I enjoy it, and it works. Anyway, let's end this with some social media plugs. That's terrible. Anyway, I'm MS. Goodbye.